The city was supposed to be her salvation, a place where dreams took flight. But as Maria stepped onto the bus, leaving her family and everything she knew behind, she couldn't shake the feeling that her journey would demand sacrifices she wasn't prepared to make. Chapter 1. Maria stood at the edge of the dusty road, her face glistening with sweat under the midday sun. The countryside's familiar scent of damp earth and distant cooking fires wrapped around her as she watched the local bus approach. Her heart fluttered with excitement and trepidation. This was the day she'd been dreaming of for years, the day she'd finally leave the quaint rural life behind to pursue her ambition of becoming a flight attendant. "Maria, are you sure about this?" her mother asked, her voice heavy with worry. "The city is not like here. It's big, it's dangerous, and we don't know anyone there." Maria smiled, taking her mother's hand in hers. "Mama, I've been preparing for this all my life. I'll be fine, I promise. And when I succeed, I'll make sure you and Papa never have to worry about anything again." Her father, a stoic man with weathered features, placed a protective hand on her shoulder. "Just remember who you are, Maria. No matter what happens, stay true to yourself." Maria glanced back at the small house she had called home for 25 years. The peeling paint and cracked windows told the story of a family that had worked hard for every meal. Yet, there was warmth there, warmth that fueled her dreams. She hugged her parents tightly, whispering promises she was determined to keep, and climbed aboard the bus with her suitcase in tow. The countryside faded into the horizon as the bus roared toward the sprawling city. Maria watched the landscape change, her emotions a whirlwind of anticipation and uncertainty. She was leaving behind everything familiar, but she carried with her a heart full of hope and a determination to build a better future. Chapter 2. The city was overwhelming. Towering skyscrapers loomed over the bustling streets, and the cacophony of honking cars and shouting vendors was a stark contrast to the tranquil countryside Maria had left behind. She clutched the piece of paper with the job address tightly, her pulse quickening as she approached the building. It was supposed to be a recruitment agency for aspiring flight attendants, but the grimy, dilapidated facade told a different story. Inside, Maria was met with cold indifference. The woman behind the desk, barely looking up from her phone, informed her that the job offer was a scam, one of many targeting hopeful dreamers like her. Maria's heart sank. She felt the weight of her suitcase grow heavier as she trudged back onto the street. The bustling city that had once seemed full of promise now felt like a maze of broken dreams. She spent the rest of the day wandering aimlessly, her feet aching and her spirits low. By nightfall, she had found a spot in a crowded public hostel. The room was cramped, the mattress thin, and the air stifling, but it was a place to sleep. Lying on the bed, Maria stared at the ceiling, willing herself not to cry. This was just a setback, she told herself. Tomorrow will be better. She had not come this far to give up now. Chapter 3. Days turned into weeks and Maria's search for a job was met with rejection after rejection. Yet, she refused to return home defeated. One morning, she found herself outside the airport once again, handing out her resume to anyone who would take it. The sun blazed overhead and her feet ached, but she pressed on. As she waited for a bus near the luggage escalators, a commotion caught her attention. Turning, she saw a little girl, no older than 5, clinging to the edge of the moving belt, her small hands slipping. Panic surged through Maria's veins. Without hesitation, she dashed forward, her heart pounding. She scooped the child into her arms just as the escalator's edge came into view. The girl stared at her with wide, tear-filled eyes. "Are you okay, sweetie?" Maria asked gently, brushing the child's hair back from her face. Before the girl could respond, a frantic man appeared, his sharp features etched with panic. "Arya. There you are." Maria turned to face him, the child still in her arms. "She's safe," she said, her voice steady. "She was about to fall, but I caught her." The man's initial relief turned to suspicion. "Who are you? What were you doing with my daughter?" Maria's jaw dropped. "I just saved her. How can you think I..." Before the argument could escalate, the little girl, Arya, surprised them both by giggling. It was a soft, hesitant sound, but it carried a joy that neither Maria nor the moon could ignore. His stern expression softened as he saw his daughter smile, a rare sight since his wife's passing 2 years ago. Chapter 4. The next day, Maria arrived at an aviation company to apply for a flight stewardess position. She had polished her shoes and ironed her one formal dress to perfection. Her heart sank when she learned they were only hiring cleaners. Swallowing her pride, Maria took the job. Survival came first, and every step, no matter how small, brought her closer to her dream. As she cleaned the offices late one evening, she bumped into a familiar figure. It was the man from the airport. "You again," he said, his tone a mix of surprise and curiosity. Maria nodded, embarrassed. "Yes, sir. I'm working here now." He introduced himself as Robert Johnson, the company's CEO. His presence was commanding, his sharp suit and stern demeanor giving him an air of authority. Yet, there was a flicker of something softer in his eyes as he regarded her. After a brief conversation, Robert offered Maria a better position, not as a flight stewardess, but as a nanny for his youngest daughter, Arya. "You've already proven you're good with her," he said simply. The offer included accommodations and better pay. Though it wasn't her dream job, Maria accepted. She saw it as an opportunity to make a difference in Arya's life while she continued to chase her own aspirations. Chapter 5. Maria's new home was a sprawling mansion, cold and imposing. The marble floors gleamed under the soft glow of chandeliers, but the grandeur only emphasized the emptiness. The staff, though polite, were reserved, and the atmosphere was stifling. It was as if the house itself mourned the loss of Robert's wife. Robert's 3 children, Liam, 15, Nora, 13, and Arya, moved through their routines like shadows. Meals were eaten in silence, and laughter was a foreign sound. Maria's arrival was met with a mix of curiosity and indifference. Determined to bring warmth into the household, Maria approached her new role with enthusiasm. She spent hours with Arya, playing games and telling stories. Her cheerful demeanor began to chip away at the girl's reserve, and soon, Arya's quiet giggles became a regular occurrence. Even Liam and Nora, initially aloof, found themselves drawn to Maria's infectious energy. Dinner time, once a solemn affair, became lively with Maria's antics and chatter. She introduced games and encouraged everyone to share stories. Slowly but surely, the house began to feel like a home again. Robert watched from the sidelines, his icy exterior thawing as Maria brought life back into his home. For the first time in years, he felt a glimmer of hope. Chapter 6. One night, as Maria tucked Arya into bed, the little girl spoke her first words since her mother's death. "Good night, Aunt Maria." Tears streamed down Maria's face as she ran to tell Robert. He hurried to Arya's room, but the child had already fallen asleep. The next evening, the entire family gathered in anticipation. When Arya repeated her good night, the room erupted in cheers. Robert turned to Maria, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you. You've given us something we thought we'd lost forever." Maria smiled, her heart swelling with pride and affection. For the first time, she saw a hint of vulnerability in Robert's eyes. It was the beginning of something neither of them could yet name. Chapter 7. Maria's presence in the Johnson household continued to be a source of transformation. Each day brought small, meaningful changes. She encouraged Arya to express herself through drawing, bought small art supplies with her earnings, and celebrated every scribble as a masterpiece. Liam began showing her his favorite books, while Nora tentatively joined Maria during kitchen experiments that ended in fits of laughter over culinary disasters. One weekend, Maria proposed a family outing to the local park. Robert, initially hesitant, agreed after seeing the enthusiasm in his children's eyes. At the park, laughter echoed as they played games, took turns on the swings, and shared a simple picnic. For the first time in years, the Johnson family began to feel whole again. Robert found himself observing Maria more closely during these moments. Her easy laughter, her unwavering patience with the children, and her ability to find joy in the simplest things stirred something within him. He began to appreciate her not just as a caretaker, but as a remarkable woman with a kind heart. Chapter 8. Despite the warmth Maria brought to the home, not everyone embraced the changes wholeheartedly. Nanny Agnes, who had been with the family for decades, began to feel her authority wane. Though she appreciated Maria's efforts, she couldn't help but feel displaced. Subtle tensions arose as Agnes found reasons to critique Maria's methods, often leading to awkward moments. Maria, ever diplomatic, sought to bridge the gap. She invited Agnes to join in activities with the children, ensuring she felt valued. Slowly, the older woman's resistance softened, and they found a rhythm of mutual respect. Agnes realized that Maria wasn't replacing her, but rather complementing her role. Meanwhile, Maria faced an internal challenge. She began to notice her growing feelings for Robert. She found herself lingering in conversations with him, her pulse quickening whenever their hands brushed. It was a confusing mix of admiration and affection, one she struggled to suppress. Unbeknownst to her, Robert was wrestling with his own emotions. He admired Maria's resilience and the way she had transformed his family. Late at night, as Robert worked in his study, he often found his thoughts drifting to Maria. She had an effortless way of bringing light into every corner of his home and heart. Yet, Robert was cautious. His grief for his late wife still lingered, and he wasn't sure if his growing feelings for Maria were fair, to her, to his children, or to himself. One evening, as Maria carried a tray of tea into the study, their hands brushed. The slight contact sent a spark through them both, and Robert couldn't help but hold her gaze a moment longer than usual. "Maria," he began, his voice soft and uncertain, "you've done so much for this family. I don't know how to thank you." "You don't need to," Maria replied, her cheeks warming under his steady gaze. "This family has given me a purpose, a place where I feel needed." They talked late into the night, their conversation weaving between laughter, shared stories, and moments of poignant silence. For the first time, Robert opened up about his late wife, the pain of losing her, and his fears about moving forward. Maria listened with compassion, her own feelings growing stronger with each word he shared. Chapter 9. One sunny afternoon, as Maria walked through the park with Arya, Robert joined them. The sight of Arya running ahead, her giggles echoing in the air, filled him with gratitude. "Maria," he said, breaking the comfortable silence between them, "you've changed this family in ways I can't describe." Maria smiled. "They've changed me too, Robert. This feels like home." As they talked, Maria confessed her original dream of becoming a flight attendant. Robert listened intently, his admiration for her growing with every word. "Why did you stop chasing it?" he asked gently. "I suppose life had other plans," she replied, her voice tinged with regret. "But it's all right. I've found joy here." Robert's expression turned serious. "Maria, you've sacrificed enough for others. You deserve to chase your dreams. If this is still your goal, I want to help you make it happen." Maria's heart swelled with gratitude. "But the children. They will always need you," Robert said with a small smile. "But they'll also need to see what it means to follow your heart. We'll make it work together." Chapter 10. Robert's influence and connections opened doors Maria never thought possible. He introduced her to a reputable aviation academy, covering her tuition fees, and arranging her schedule to allow her to continue supporting the children. Maria's days became a whirlwind of study, practice, and home life, but she thrived under the pressure. The children supported her every step of the way. Nora helped quiz her on aviation terminology, and Liam ensured her uniform was always perfectly ironed. Even little Arya cheered her on with drawings of airplanes. Maria's dedication paid off. Months of rigorous training culminated in her graduation as a certified flight attendant. On the day of her first flight, the entire Johnson family came to the airport to cheer her on. Robert, standing slightly apart, looked at Maria with pride and something deeper, a love he could no longer deny. Chapter 11. That evening, Robert invited Maria to dinner to celebrate her achievement. The atmosphere was warm, and their conversation flowed easily. As the night wore on, Robert reached across the table, taking her hand in his. "Maria," he began, his voice steady but laced with emotion, "you've brought my family back to life. You've shown me how to hope again. I can't imagine a future without you." Maria's breath caught. "Robert, I..." He stood, gently pulling her to her feet. "Maria, I've fallen in love with you. Not just for what you've done for my family, but for who you are. Will you let me be part of your life, not just as the man you work for, but as the man who loves you?" Tears filled Maria's eyes as she whispered, "Yes." Their first kiss was tender and full of promise, sealing the love that had been quietly growing between them. Chapter 12. Their relationship blossomed, and a few months later, Robert proposed during a family outing at the same park where their journey had begun. The children were thrilled, and Arya proudly declared she would be the flower girl. Their wedding was an intimate affair, filled with laughter, joy, and the warmth of family. Maria walked down the aisle in a simple yet elegant gown, her eyes locked on Robert's. When they exchanged vows, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. That night, in the quiet of their honeymoon suite, Robert and Maria shared their first night as husband and wife. Their love was tender and passionate, a culmination of the trust and affection they had built over time. Chapter 13. Months into their marriage, Maria began to notice subtle changes in herself: nausea, fatigue, and an unfamiliar flutter of excitement. A visit to the doctor confirmed her suspicions: she was pregnant. When she shared the news with Robert, his joy was boundless. The children, too, were ecstatic, eagerly preparing for the arrival of their new sibling. Maria's pregnancy was a time of love and anticipation. Robert was her rock, attending every appointment and indulging her cravings with unflinching patience. The entire family rallied around her, ensuring she never felt alone. The day finally arrived, and Maria gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl. As she held them in her arms, tears streaming down her face, she felt an overwhelming sense of fulfillment. Her life had come full circle. She had followed her dreams, found love, and built a family she cherished. Chapter 14. Years later, Maria stood at the airport, her children waving goodbye as she prepared for another flight. Her heart swelled with pride as she glanced at Robert, who held their twins, now toddlers, in his arms. Her life was a tapestry of love, resilience, and dreams fulfilled. As the plane ascended into the clouds, Maria gazed out the window, her heart soaring. She had left the countryside with nothing but hope and determination, and now she was living a life more beautiful than she had ever imagined. The journey wasn't just about reaching the skies, it was about finding home, love, and purpose along the way.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe to this channel for more interesting stories, and you can also leave comments that would help improve the quality of our stories. Thank you.